It's rock and roll.
Welcome to the Look It's Rock and Roll podcast, a podcast about music, all sorts of music. Today I got a special guest with me, Lee McCormick, the one and only, the podcasting rockin' pod music director. You got a few things going on in your life, so why don't you give everyone an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, man, how's it going? Good to be here. Thank you for having me, Julian. And yeah, I'm a rock and roll fan. You know, I'm a musician too. And I've gotten into this podcasting world probably the last 5-6 years. You know, I started a Springsteen podcast, a huge Springsteen fan. So I figured, you know, there's no Springsteen podcast out there. So I put one together and, you know, that's been a lot of fun. And I've been branching off with that and doing these rockin' and rollin' and whatnot sidecasts where I talk about things other than Springsteen. And that's a lot of fun. It's been, you know, great being part of this podcast community. And, you know, it's great. So I appreciate you having me on and being able to share some of my music today.
Yeah, and Tramps Like Us is, of course, the name of that Springsteen podcast. So being friends with you on Facebook has been a great thing because it made me approach Bruce Springsteen, or reapproach Bruce Springsteen, when I did my adventure of revisiting every single one of his studio albums sequentially last year after bashing on him for many years, and it completely changed my outlook. You've also done, you know, episodes, I think, with the Pods and Sods guys, you know, so you're all over the place, but now you've got some new music of your own coming out. So why don't you tell everyone about yourself as a musician, because this is not your first release. If I recall correctly, you have been on a covers album previously, and
yeah, that's kind of how it started. You know, I've always been a music fan since I was a very young kid. You know, first just being a music lover, falling in love with records. You know, and at a very young age, I kind of wanted to be a DJ, a disc jockey, because I figured I could just listen to records all day, right? And then I got a little bit older, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I'm not setting I'm setting my sights a little bit too low there. Maybe I could actually play some of this stuff. Maybe I could be one of these guys that I look up to on these records, right? So then my teen years, I studied drums, was my first instrument. Not too long after that, I grabbed a guitar and I started learning guitar as well. So all through my teen years, I was kind of really absorbing all of this musical knowledge, becoming a musician, learning how to play instruments, learning about all different styles, you know, branching off from the stuff that I learned, stuff that I was a fan of as a young kid, the pop music and the heavy metal, and going into, you know, some older 50s and 60s music, soul music, country music, rockabilly music, and really, you know, jazz, really kind of expanding my musical knowledge as I'm learning these instruments. Right, moving forward in my early 20s, I studied music at Humber College in Toronto. I spent 3 years there in the jazz program, playing drums, meeting other musicians, learning how to become a better musician, kind of getting a professional musician ethic. That's kind of what I got out of college the most, more than the knowledge and the theory that they were teaching me, was just kind of how to be a musician, how to work with other musicians, how to lead a band, that kind of thing, right? And, you know, at that point, I started putting my own band together. And I thought, you know, I'm a drummer, I'm a guitar player, maybe I'm just going to start writing some songs. Maybe I can be a guy that puts a band together, right? So I put a band together myself, called it Moon Violet. And basically, I was going to be the guitar songs. On the records, I would play instruments. I could bass, guitar, you know, drums, obviously. And I had a female singer with me, Dallas James, and she had a great voice, met her at college. So we did a couple of releases with her. And the first thing we did, you mentioned, was the tribute stuff, right? So the first one I did was a Kiss tribute called Pucker Up. I don't know if you know of that one. That was from Oshawa, which is a suburb of Toronto, right where I live here. And they were very a big, like, motor city, right? Like General Motors, they make cars there. So they call this one like Oshawa Rock City, kind of a tribute to the Kiss, kind of the Detroit Oshawa parallel there, right? So for that one, I did song Getaway, and I did a rockabilly version of that one, right, with Dallas on lead vocals. And I took this Kiss song and I kind of really turned it upside down and put this rockabilly tune together, which was really cool. It turned out really great, right? And that somehow got into the hands of the guy that was putting together this other tribute record to Ace Frehley called Return of the Comet, right? He heard my song on this tribute record, and he said, we got to get this guy to do another Ace rockabilly one for this one, right? So for that record, I chose Speeding Back to My Baby, Same concept. Let's take a Kiss song, let's turn it upside down, see if we can do a rockabilly version of Speeding Back to My Baby with Dallas on lead vocals, right? And that really turned out really excellent. So that was kind of the first experience I had in a recording studio and kind of getting music out there on a CD physical copy, which was exciting in the late 90s there, you know?
Yeah, that Doug Organized CD was the bomb back then because it just had so many different things and those quirky takes on covers. The Pucker Up, the Canadian tribute to Kiss, I was never able to find a copy of, which is really a bummer. But I mean,
I might have a couple of copies here. Maybe I can send one for you in the mail here. Where's that one? Yeah, there's that one there. Pucker Up.
There you go. Yeah, those are money on eBay, so there you go. You know,
I might have a couple hanging around. Yeah.
But you know, in your career, you've moved forward. You are a working musician. You've been, you know, I remember you took off on a cruise last year, I think it was.
Yeah,
and,
I gave it my
pretty much went around the world.
Yeah, I gave it my best shot. You know, the kind of thing that was kind of sucked when I was really getting into the music business was, you know, the music business was drastically changing right when I was starting out. So I was starting out like 99, 2000, and I was like, how do you do it here? Let's make a CD. So we went in the studio, we made a CD, physical copies, tried to get a record deal, had a little bit of label interest, but nothing. So we just put it out independently. I was selling CDs at shows. We went through that route, kind of the old school way of how do you start a band, how do you promote a CD, right? And we did another one in 2006. This one I kind of took over as a lead vocalist, right? My singer Dallas, she got married and kind of had other priorities than being in a rock and roll band. So this is my chance to kind of just gotta step up. I'm gonna sing, right? I was always kind of shy about singing, but you know, I took that step. I made a record with all my lead vocals, and you know, did the same thing, tried to market that. But I was noticing like that decade from 99 to 2009, it's just like it's so hard to sell CDs, right? And you could see people just dropping off. Like each gig I would do, I would sell less and less CDs, and people would almost be like shocked that I was charging $10 for a CD kind of thing, right? So I really kind of had to reevaluate, you know, is this going to be a career? Is this going to be a hobby? How am I going to sustain my creativity? So, you know, I started working on cruise ships as a drummer. You know, I did a stint for about 3 years where I was just the orchestra drummer on a cruise ship. And then in recent years, I've hooked up with a Beatles tribute band, and we go on like do gigs as guest entertainers on cruise ships. And, you know, that's a lot of fun. And I'm still playing and I'm getting paid, you know, so it's not really the dream of being the musician and the songwriter and the rock star that I want to be, right? But I'm still being able to get out there and be creative and see the world. And my music has been able to afford me some great things. Like you said, I was gone for like 2 or 3 months there last year, all over Europe and Asia, playing Beatles songs, right? So you kind of just got to make it work and, you know, have some fun with it, you know?
Play Beatles songs by night, hitting record stores in different countries by day. I mean, come on.
That's what I was doing, yeah.
You know, that's absolutely awesome. And I've had the pleasure of sharing the stage with you at 2 of the Rock and Pod Expos in Nashville. You've been a regular there, and I think we did Rip It Out the first year, that I was butchering on vocals. And then last year, I strapped on a guitar and butchered Neil Young, which it was a blast with Greg Troyan up on stage. I don't remember the other cats who were doing stuff, but I think the great fun of that is watching you, because you organize this every year. You get the songs together, you get the little groups together, and then basically you're working your way around the stage on every different instrument, you know, having a great time. I still say Ralph and the guys won last year with Twisted Sister, a rock and pop. But let's talk about your new single, Train to Heartbreak.
Yeah, big thrill, man. This is I'm really excited about this one, probably more than any of my other releases. And there's a little bit of a backstory behind this, and so I'll just kind of give you the kind of short synopsis of what happened. Well, this is a song I wrote this song about 10 years ago, put it out on a CD, and I always thought it was a really good song, you know, and one of my best songs that I've done. And, you know, I've had the pleasure of attending Steve Earle's Camp Copperhead a few years. He has this master class that he does once a year up in Big Indian, New York, where it's about, you know, 4 or 5 day camp with Steve Earle, going through songwriting techniques and having him mentor you and give you exercise and things like that. So I was there a couple of years ago, and I had the opportunity to go up in front of the class, in front of Steve Earle, and perform my song Train of Heartbreak with the lyrics on behind the stage and have Steve Earle there. He's one of my heroes, right? So it was a big thrill to play a song that I wrote and have Steve Earle there listening to it and looking at the lyrics behind me, right? And after I played the song, he gave me a little critique. And one of the things he said was, Train a Heartbreak. I think you might want to change that to Train to Heartbreak. And a light bulb kind of went off in my head. I'm like, ooh, that's kind of nice, right? So he gave me, some tips and some little pointers. This line is a little, you might want to change that a little bit and maybe drop a verse, move this here, right? So it was great to have a song that I really love that I think is a good, one of my best songs that I've written, and have Steve Earle kind of tweak it a little bit. So now I've had this song that I've worked on and I've got it right down. And, the big thrill was I was able to record it at Sun Studio in Memphis, Tennessee. Last summer after the Rockin' Pod.
Now that's what I thought I remembered, that after the Rockin' Pod you were heading on to Memphis, right?
That's right. Yeah. So like every time I hit Nashville, I got to hit Memphis because I love Memphis, Sun Records, Elvis Presley, Stax, Johnny Cash. There's just such a vibe with that city. So when I'm in Nashville, I got to go down Music Highway and hit Memphis, right? So I've been friendly with the guys that work at Sun there, and when I was there for Rockin' Pod 2. And did the Memphis trek, they kind of said, hey, man, you got to come down next year and record a song. And so they kind of gave me a little bit of deal on the price there. And we had a great time, putting down 2 songs. I did the Train a Heartbreak and another song, Every Night's a Saturday Night, which is the B-side of this vinyl single that I'm going to be putting out. So it was really exciting to have, this song recorded at Sun Studio in Memphis, Tennessee, like playing all these vintage instruments. It's like the drum kit that's there. I was like, I don't know if you remember the video U2 did there in the 80s, When Love Comes to Town, for the Rattle and Hum, right? And Larry Mullen Jr. brought a drum kit with him, and he just left it there, right? So that's the drum kit that's there. So that's the drums that I played on this track were Larry Mullen Jr.'s Ludwig kit, right? And I played Marty Stewart's Martin acoustic guitar was there. I brought my Gretsch guitar down. I brought my buddy James, came down to play upright Doghouse bass, so they had a bass there. And we're using all ribbon mics, like all vintage equipment, vintage microphones. And when I did the vocal take, like I'm standing right in the spot where Elvis Presley stood when he would record, these classic Sun records in the 50s, right? So it was just such a thrill to stand there and absorb like this, the ghosts of Sun Records and try and capture some of this magic on this recording that I did, right? So
that's the part that blows my mind. I mean, here you are in Sun Studios, and it's not like for the Beatles, the Cavern, which is no longer the Cavern. This is where that history took place, and it doesn't matter whether you're a metalhead, whether you're into disco, whether you're into R&B or whatever. The music history that must have been seeping off the walls and coming up through the floor. I mean, how on earth do you get your head around, I'm standing here, and now I have to perform my own song and have it echo here as well?
Well, I've been there so many times as a tourist, right? Like it's a great tour you can go through, and they kind of give you an audio tour because it's basically it's just one room, right? Like a small front office, and then maybe like a 30 by 40 recording room, and in the back control room booth you can't really go in for the tours. All the vintage stuff has kind of been taken out of there anyway, but just to go through as a tour and just to take in the vibe and like, this is the room, man. But then to be there as a musician and a performer, and it was just such a thrill. And I mean, like, it's the same tiles on the floor. It's the same, baffling on the roofs and everything. It's the piping is the same, so the doors are all the same, right? So you're just sopping in all this this great mojo from this incredible studio, right? And I'm a junkie for all vintage studios and places and landmark rock and roll landmarks, and this is probably in the top 3 rock and roll landmarks in the world. I think this studio, right? So it was just such a thrill to put this out, and I'm just so excited to put out a 45 vinyl with 2 songs recorded at Sun Studio, right? So it's such a thrill.
That's going to be wild. And you've already mentioned some of the instrumentation that you used. Upright bass. I heard the Gretsch on the playing. I was like, that's got to be a Gretsch. I mean, come on, it's got that sonic signature that it can be nothing else. So I'm actually relieved that I was correct on that. But the first impression that I got, and again with my limited musical vocabulary for kind of Americana and everything that came out of Memphis, was kind of the chukka chukka of Johnny Cash.
For sure.
I was getting that vibe tremendously. When you're writing this song, what were there influences in your head that were speaking to you as you developed it and as it found its final arrangement?
For sure. I mean, like I'm a big rockabilly fan. I'm a big old school country fan, right? So this song, when I wrote it, like I had in my head, Stray Cats meet Johnny Cash. What would that sound like, right? So that's what this is what I think I came up with, right? Kind of, you got to have that kind of Johnny Cash acoustic guitar, the 1/5 boom, boom, boom underneath there. You got to have some twangy Gretsch guitar, like you mentioned, like Brian Setzer, Stray Cats, some swinging drums, and yeah, I did my best. I'm really proud of this song, man. I think it turned out great. The title "Train of Heartbreak" that I originally had, came from a Johnny Cash song called "Train of Love," and that was kind of the impetus to start this the lyrics of this song, right? So, yeah, it's it turned out really well. I'm really excited for it. And one thing I'll mention too is I got a video that's out there too. So people can check out the video and see me in Sun Studios, laying down some of these tracks. And it was cool because the guys, the engineers at Sun they're young guys, right? And they open it up for recording like at night. So they do the tours in the daytime, and then like 6 p.m. to midnight, you can go in there and record a song kind of thing, right? And most of the guys that go in there, they record it like the way they would do it in the early days, where you're just recording live off the floor, right? You just put your band up there, play live. Hopefully you don't get any, clunkers, too many mistakes, and there's a take, right? But what I did was, I layered everything. So first I put down the drum track, then the acoustic guitar, then the bass, and the guitar, vocals on top kind of thing, right? And the guys in the studio, they were kind of like, oh, we've never really done this before. And they were kind of impressed that I was able to kind of move from instrument to instrument, and I had it all kind of laid out in the way I was able to create this song and layer it that way, right? Playing everything except the upright bass that I brought my buddy down to tackle, right?
So was it all completed there, or did you then walk away with files and have to finish it up elsewhere?
Well, no, we recorded the raw stuff there, right? And that was basically it, right? I mixed it back home here in Toronto with my buddies at his studio. But the main thing I wanted to get out of the Sun studio was recording everything, get those sounds with the vintage ribbon mics and the sound of that room, the sound of the vintage instruments there, right? So, and it was recorded, the exact same way that Sam Phillips would have done it in the 50s, right? Like, so the board that they had was a simple like 2-channel board, and the vocal effect you hear is the exact like slap tape delay that they would put on like an Elvis record from 54, right? Where what you're doing is you're running what you've recorded through a tape machine, right? And the tape machine adjusts speed slightly so that you'll get 2 vocal tracks, but one is kind of slightly behind it. So you get this echo effect, right? That's the slap. And you get that off the tape. It's to do with tape, recording back to tape, and the differential between the speeds of the tape, right? So it was cool to have my vocal track raw, and then they send it through the tape machine the effect that they would put on a Presley record, and all of a sudden my voice turned into like, oh, there's the sound, right? There's the Sun vocal sound. So it's such a thrill, really exciting.
Yeah, some of the very earliest studio kind of trickery that later grew into what the Beatles would do, and all the other, Prince later did. Like 24 tracks ain't enough. Get me 2 24-track machines, and let's make some magic. All right, so where can people get your single, and what's its availability, and the details on that?
Well, it's out now, and we have vinyl. Obviously, that's the one I'm most excited about, is to have my stuff on vinyl, right? I've put out CDs before, but never a record. So this is the first vinyl product I've put out. Putting out a 7-inch, 2 songs, both of them recorded at Sun Studio, and it's a great rock and roll, rockabilly Sun Records vibe to that. So I'm selling those for $9.99, and you can get it's also the digitals out there, right? You can get the single "Train to Heartbreak" on Apple Music. I think it's $1.98 for both songs, so that's a bargain too. You can listen on Spotify if that's the way you do it. It's on there. Just look up "Train to Heartbreak," Lee McCormick. You'll find it there. And look up the video too, "Train to Heartbreak," Lee McCormick. That's on YouTube. And moonviolet.com is the website. That was my band. My band was Moonviolet, and for this single, I'm releasing it under my name, Lee McCormick. This is the first release I've ever put out under my name. So the website is moonviolet.com. That's a good place to go for if you want to, get some more information on some of the other records I've done. The Kiss stuff, the Kiss tributes, and the previous records, Rock and Roll Party, Heart Tattoo, Come On, Let's All Go. Check it out on moonviolet.com.
That's awesome, Lee. Any final words? Because that's just so cool. I think people are going to enjoy this. People who appreciate music and appreciate music history. Just think of all those bands that have enjoyed going into Abbey Road to record because of the history that soaks off the wall. America's Got Sun Studios.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's such a thrill. So I appreciate you, Julian, letting me come on here and kind of, promote my stuff here. I forgot to say with the vinyl, you can get it off Amazon, but there's a little bit of a slowdown with Amazon. I think there's a delay with them stocking their warehouses with new product, new records these days. So, the quickest way to get it is to contact me directly through the website or the Facebook page, Moonlight Violet Music. But yeah, man, I appreciate it. Please check out the video and have a listen. And I sincerely appreciate it, and I hope you dig it. Rock and roll, man.
I know I do, and support the artist. And what's better than be able to get the music directly from the artist? So, Lee McCormick, thank you very much. Best of luck with the single, and hope to see you in Nashville next year.
Be there. Thanks, Julian.
Well, my baby left me, didn't tell me why, just took her things and split.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe to us, like us, or even leave us a review. You can find us and join the conversation on Facebook.